We are about to start our meeting today, and we start our studies with a message from the book Open New Doors Within. Never try to interfere with anyone else's path. All souls have to find their own path and reach the goal their own way. Some may do it through meditation, some through contemplation, some through prayer, some through work, and some through contact with people. Let all souls find their own path and follow it. Let there be no turning down, cul-de-sacs, no wandering off down highways and byways, wasting precious times and energy. Follow the straight and narrow path. Keep your eye on the goal, which is your realization of oneness. With me, the Lord, your God, the divinity within you. Never be put off when the going is hard and rough, but keep on and know you will get there. This life is not for those souls who are faint-hearted and who are afraid to face the truth and walk straight into light. Be strong and of good courage. Put your hand in mine, and I will guide you every step of the way, if you will only let me.
As we are about to start our study today, together, ourselves and all of those in the spirit who are with us, brothers and sisters in humanity, may we join our minds and hearts towards the goodness in the world, connecting towards all of those in the spirit and also those in the flesh who are devoting themselves and their lives in projects of goodness. And in that way, elevating our hearts and minds towards our Master Jesus, the guide of humanity, and asking you humbly to bless every and each one of us here today, ourselves, those in His Spirit who are here with us, those who the benefactors brought to us, those who may be enjoying and learning from the outside, helped by the benefactors, and all of those who may be following us and be with us on the virtual level, as brothers and sisters in God, connected through His love, learners of life as we all are. May we start our meeting expressing our gratitude for everything and everyone that is part in our journey of evolution, our journey of enlightenment, even those that may harm us, understand that we all are essentially beings of goodness, beings of light. And as learners, we still all do mistakes as we learn. So may we learn to forgive ourselves and forgive others. And in that way, walk our pathway in a light-hearted way, united with the goodness within every and each one of us, receiving the light from the enlightened beings as students of the natural laws of life. We start our study today. So be it. Welcome all of us here for one more opportunity that life is granted to us. Life meaning God, as learners as we all are about the natural or the principles in the universe. We are studying the Spirits book, which are the teachings of the Enlightened Spirits given to humanity, which is available to all of us who want to study about it. And we are in a sequential mode. We are in the final chapter, Hopes and Consolations, which is a very important chapter, as much as the others as well, because the questions, the answers are bringing hope and consolations for our experiences on earth, which are transitory, which sometimes we may find it challenging. And we are under the sub-item, Dissatisfaction with Life, Suicide, which we have been studying for a couple of weeks already, and perhaps we are coming to the end today, because there are a lot of questions. That means this subject is very important for all of us, especially these days on earth. Although it has been written more than 160 years ago, but it's almost like that the questions are referring to the reality on earth now. So it's important. As immortal beings, there is no point for us to consider the suicide, because we all came back with the purpose of learning, of re-educating ourselves, and therefore, surely in this stage of evolution where we are, facing tribulations, challenges, which are part of our pathway. So we don't need to consider suicide when we eventually face a challenging moment in our lives, but let's always ask for help and then move forward. So we are moving on to the question where we started last week, actually, 957. I just read it for us to situate ourselves, but we didn't have time to finish it through the notes, and we go through it today. The question is, in general, what are the consequences of suicide in the state of the spirit? And we went through with the first part last week. Shall we just read it for us to situate us psychically, and then we go through? Claudenise, would you like to read it for us, please?
The consequences of suicide vary widely. There are no set penalties, and in all cases, they are always relative to the causes that produce them. One consequence from which those who commit suicide cannot escape, however, is disappointment. Besides the fate, it is not the same for all. It depends on circumstances. Some expiate their wrong at once, whereas others do so in a new life. That will be worse than the one whose course they cut short.
Okay, so now we move on to following the note of this question, which we carry on studying today. The note starts, which is quite long, by saying, we go through gradually, then it's easier for us to reflect. Observation has in fact confirmed that the consequences of suicide are not always the same. However, there are some that are a common thread to all cases of violent death and the aftermath of the sudden interruption of life. Let's see up to here, what do we understand? Why not always the consequences are the same, the consequences of suicide? Why the consequences are not always the same?
Because we are different. We are created simple and ignorant, and we are different.
Okay, so we have been all created simple and ignorant in a unique way. So we are all unique beings in the universe. And we, since we start our journey of evolution, especially when we reach the reason level, which is the human level, we activated the cause and effect, the laws, through the use of free will. Therefore, we have different, let's say, aspects internally, motivations or intentions that may be behind choosing to commit suicide, and therefore the consequences will be different as well. Yes, those who are more ignorant, the consequences will be different than those who already have more knowledge about life in itself as a mortal being. Those who may be in a blind desperation is one reality. Those who are doing it in a calculated way is in a different consequences. Is that making sense? But doesn't matter which kind of consequences. The suicide is always a wrong move that we do against us within the laws in the universe, understanding that the laws in the universe are governed by the law from God. Okay? And also, if we commit it, there is no reason for us to despair, But yes, to learn as we are learning here, and then learn to value our own lives, respect life, and allow ourselves to move forward in going through the new experiences.
The situation of one may commit suicide, it varies, as you said, and reminded us, by the individual, the circumstances, the knowledge, the evolution, the conscience of the person at the moment of the action. Because one may know, have certain knowledge or certain faith in the afterlife, but within the circumstances, what has happened in the moment, it may take over the rationality, and the person just act impulsively and will be dealt differently with the one that has been thinking about it and planning, or the other one that has been um, um, giving food to this kind of thoughts before, and not rationalizing, not bringing the knowledge that there is something more to just this solution, but just giving in into the anxiety and desperation, impulsively, and feeding into this kind of thoughts instead of reaching out for help.
Correct.
Because one has the opportunity, but others may act just impulsively, like on losing a dear loved one, like a mother or father losing a son, or in an accident, or if there's a fire. So it's different, the situation. So I think that's why the consequences are different, but the heaviness of the action is still the same. Because for everyone, you're giving up the opportunity. You will have to look through that in your own perspective. It's not like it's the same for everyone, but the same, what I said, the same is the opportunity is lost for everyone.
The opportunity is lost, but the heaviness, Claudinice, I think is not the same for everyone.
Yeah.
Because if someone is very ignorant and doesn't have any understanding about the immortality of the soul, about the role of reincarnation, that will be one kind of consequences on the energetic level. Those who know it already and those who still do it, that will be much heavier on the conscience. Yeah? Okay? Because the responsibility kicks in here. Yeah? Okay. So if you move on, foremost among them is the persistence of the link that ties the spirit to the body, and which is almost always at its full strength when prematurely ruptured. Unlike natural death, wherein this link weakens gradually and is often undone before life is completely extinguished. The consequences of these unfortunate events are the prolongation of spiritual confusion, followed by the illusion, which for a longer or shorter period causes the spirit to believe in it is still among the living. What do we learn with this last part of this note?
I believe for us, the ones that commit suicide, the desperation and the difficulties once we pass through to the other side may be more unbearable than any situation we be living in here and now. Because for the more that it seems unbearable or the pain is excruciating, while we are here, we may have the opportunity, and we have to remind ourselves that we are here with an opportunity, and I may still be within the life within me, who is still in my connecting me with the world. So I may feel like I'm still going to work, I'm still taking care of my house, looking after my things, and then when I try to interact with those around me and they don't respond to me, I may just think I'm going crazy.
Yeah.
Or what is wrong? Why are they ignoring me? Are you upset? And I don't get response. So I may be living in that pattern for a long time, suffering with all of this.
We get stuck. We get stuck in the way how we, let's say, committed to act or involved ourselves with that, and then we walk, psychically speaking, in circles, and we cannot see beyond that. And that causes suffering and despair sometimes.
I believe it's very important for us to remind ourselves and to talk to those around us how important it is to stop our repeating thoughts, to fight the thoughts that we have a problem and we can't solve it, that life is different for us than it's for other people, that things should be better or should be in a different way. Because nowadays, this is really common around people and children and the elderly especially. Because of the
Extremes.
two extremes that are suffering a lot with this. Because most of us don't realize that this is possible. Children may be going through a difficult phase, and the elderly may be going through a difficult phase where they're feeling lonely, where they're feeling incapable, where they're feeling there is no hope. And we must pay attention to these moments and share what we know. Because the more we talk, I'm saying for me, because the more I study, the more I repeat to myself that life continues. If I give up my right to live now, I may still connect it to my body and still stay here, living through the feelings, but not being able to interact. And then believing there is an opportunity, there is a reason for what I'm going through, and everything will pass. So I must work on the patience and help.
And especially understanding that there is an urgent need for all of us, especially for us when we bring as a spiritist to talk more about suicide. Because we are going through this phase of the transformation, the regeneration process, where the greatest challenge is suicide and negative thinking, which is coming up in all ages. So talking about from a mortal view, from the immortality of the soul, talking about what the consequences are, talking about what the motivations for us to consider suicides are, that actually that lies within, and we bring within the possibility to renew ourselves. We came back to earth as students, as learners, to promote ourselves in goodness. So it doesn't matter which kind of experience we are going through, we have the power within, which is awaiting for us to stimulate to renew ourselves. As long as we choose to learn to develop the virtues. When we learn to develop humbleness, a lot of challenging moments, they become much bearable, let's put it like that. And as parents also to be very attentive with our children, because they are immortal beings, old souls who are coming back with new bodies, with the old tendencies that they are expressing quite often in a very young age, so that we may be attentive and helping them from a young age onwards to show real life, to stimulate them towards goodness, to stimulate that they are capable of changing, is stimulating the goodness within, so that we help them, help us, and help all of those in the spirit who may be connected with us psychically, because we never are alone.
I hope from now on we will bring it in more often, not just the consequences and what happens when someone commits suicide, but how to prevent it, how someone can recognize the signs that the person may be going oneself into depression or into these patterns of thought, lacking of care for oneself, lacking of eating, of
emptiness, lack of purposes in life, the emptiness within. Those are signals that we need to pay attention. Desperation, the anxiety, the exacerbation of anxiety, that are signals that we also need to look, because we are quite disconnected from the natural laws. We despair ourselves because we are disconnected from God. So when we learn to connect, that there is a greater source than us, which is love and is loving us all and involving us all in this process as we are struggling and learning, that also gives us more peace on the heart level. And as you mentioned previously, whatever we may be facing as learners of ourselves in the universe, remembering we never are alone. We all have spiritual guides, spiritual friends who are with us. We can learn to pray to connect with them, or we can learn to talk psychically with them, as we were talking with other people, mentally speaking. Please help me, please enlighten me, please guide me, that I may listen what you are suggesting to me, because I know that you are there, and they are there. And he also asks other people around us, let's go to the church, or let's go to the mosque, or let's go any kind of pathway in spirituality that strengthens us in terms of the real values of life. We are immortal beings. We still are all learning. We don't need to be falling into despair because someone may leave us in relationships. We don't need to feel in despair when our son or a partner dies, as we call. Because within Spiritism, no one dies. We just free ourselves from the physical body. We all are alive. That is the chapter Hopes and Consolations. That is very consoling for us. And then if we do what we need to do in the school earth, sooner or later we will also free naturally ourselves from the physical body. And when it's the right moment, we will join the dear ones again. And that is very consoling. So the next paragraph in the note. In some suicides, the affinity that persists between the spirit and the body produces a sort of repercussion of the state of the body and the spirit, which is thus compelled to witness the effects of decomposition, experience a sensation full of anguish and horror. This state can continue as long as the life which was cut short ought to have lasted. This consequence is not the general rule. However, in no case are those who committed suicide freed from the consequences of their lack of courage. Sooner or later, they will expiate this wrong in one or another way. What do we learn here now?
That's what we know. It's wrong to commit suicide. It's wrong to kill anybody anyway.
Yeah.
And for most of us with the knowledge that we've gained, we wouldn't even want to, however bad things are. In fact, to me, before I even entered into Spiritism, I thought killing anyone, and including myself, was wrong. It didn't feel right. I'm still frightened, if anything. And of course, we learn also reading this, and what you've been saying as well, that the consequences are not very good. We know that, so that will stop us. But there are two situations where I do feel sorry for people. One is when we don't have it so much now, in the last war, when people were captured, and they knew they were going to be shot the following day, if they had a poison capture, and they, rather than face the consequences of a firing squad or even death by strangulation, they took the pill to save that. I don't know how that would be. Whether
I don't know either. God will know.
Because that was, yeah. And also the other situation, I feel sorry for people who do it. Somebody who may be in their late 80s, 90s, even approaching 100, may have something wrong that they can't get rid of. They may have an illness, they may have a pain, they may not be able to walk, they may not be able to do anything for themselves, and they may be, I can't take any more of this, you know, they're getting so old, the body's not in a good shape, and they want to carry. I can understand it with an older person, which is, we couldn't do it, but what I'm saying is someone who's old.
But it's still in that reality. The body is old, the body may be weak, which is and becomes gradually, but we are immortal spirits.
Yeah,
and that is the case, because I may not be able anymore to do anything, but I'm always able to learn something.
Yeah, but somebody who hasn't got that knowledge, when they read here, they may find that, as I just said, they're disabled. They can't even get out of bed without help.
Yeah, some
There
say
are so
even
many
they are
other people
rigidity.
who are just can't do anything with their body.
But that, again, those who may be studying with us, who already went through that, or those who may be even in a physical body, it is important to understand that within the natural laws of life, which are God's laws, any situation, any experience is a given experience from God for us to learn, to resignate ourselves.
As I say there, the consequences vary.
Because even if the body is weak, we in His Spirit are listening, we are hearing, the benefactors are there, they are giving suggestions, they are inviting us to submit ourselves to these temporary, transitory experiences, and learning to be humble, learning the obedience and resignation in relation to God, learning to reflect about ourselves as immortal beings, that we are not a physical body. And in that way, we learn quite a lot and develop also courage, as they say here. The courage is a virtue on the moral level. As more as we develop courage according to the natural laws of life, the stronger we become in going through our experiences from a viewpoint beyond the physicality, beyond the material level.
Yeah, I've talked about it, you've never read this, philosophy.
Still, we are talking with those who
Yeah.
are with us here, Jack, otherwise we are incinerating them.
And
We need to help to stimulate the real life. Yeah?
Someone said this recently about people in old age home,
Mhm.
and they're literally like
Yes.
this.
This is why it's so important that we carry on
Yeah.
studying and presenting Spiritism in a positive way. The chapter is hopes and consolations. Those who are connecting with us here today, let's have hope and console ourselves in the experiences that we quite often ask and demand to go through when we are the spirits, because we knew already what we need in terms of progressing and growing. So it's important that we never take those experiences as punishment or something negative that God is doing with us. No, we asked to go through, and we knew that would be a blessing for us. So let's strengthen ourselves. I repeat again, we are never alone, even if we feel that we are quiet or totally limited on a physical level. But psychologically, emotionally, we are not limited because we are independent of the physicality.
I believe it's important, like you said, for us to talk, to bring in this knowledge, because even for us who have this knowledge, it is still hard to face the thought of suicide once we go into a difficult phase. And we may think, oh, is this really true? It may not be true. There may not be the spiritual world. There may not be after and after. So I may just finish with all this suffering. And then if we, oh, okay, no. I studied this and that, and then you can argumentate with yourself and you can get hope from somehow. But if we talk more with people, then it won't be such a shocking subject.
No, we will strengthen ourselves.
Yeah.
We will feel freer to open up what goes on within. Because it's not because us as a spiritist that we are reflecting and study about that we don't have thoughts of suicide. A lot of people within the Spiritist movement do have. Why? Because they have the knowledge, but on an emotional level that hasn't sinked in. We are all the spirits who quite often already committed suicide, even those who come back in Spiritism, that we bring on the emotional memory those tendencies, and sooner or later they kick in and come up. So we have the knowledge on a cognitive level, but it still is so strong that it comes up because we came back with the old systems to renew it while we are in the flesh. And this is why it's so important to study, to reflect, to look at it in a constructive way now, within the hopes and consolations in relation to our experiences that we go through. That gives us courage.
I see that the more we study, the more we have food to fight these things, and the more we will be able to help ourselves and to help those around us.
Yes.
Like yesterday, I had a meeting with some colleagues, and at the end, one of them brought it up, and that it's going through a difficult phases, having to have a medical assistance because the thought of suicide was crossing a lot and is fighting a very hard time. And one was shocked. And then, I can see that how difficult it is for anyone to reach out for help. Because if you try to bring it out and, just show how difficult the time is for you, and you see the shock in the other person, like completely have no idea of what to say or how to act, and just wants to close the subject. And then the person is out alone because I'm here, I'm bringing it out to you, and you just block
This
it.
is why important, as you mentioned, we are talking that we talk more about, that more and more people get to know about suicide, and that if they learn and also they feel more at ease within, and therefore to embrace someone who may come along our pathway and opening up. Because opening up actually is good instead of just shutting down. It's very good to open up because that is a way that we are ventilating. And within Spiritism, when we have the suicide thinking, we never are alone. We always have other spirits with us. So when we feel that we can trust and open up, there is a way that we release the strength of the connection with those spirits. And those who are with us, as we talk about more and are enlighten our minds and hearts in relation to value our lives, respect life, honor the difficulties because they are experiences to promote us, they are also learning with us. So we don't need to fear. We are all children of God. Essentially, all of us good beings in our hearts. Let's all learn to value life. And now we carry on the next part of the note. Jack, would you like to read it for us, please?
Thus, certain spirits who have been very unhappy on earth have stated that they had committed suicide in their preceding existence, and that they have willingly submitted to new trials in order to try to bear them with more resignation. For some, it comes in the form of a bond to matter, from which they vainly seek to free themselves in order to go to happier worlds, whose access is denied to them. For the majority, it is regret for having done something needless, for which they have reaped only disappointment.
Okay.
That sums it up wonderfully, doesn't it?
Yeah, they put it very, very.
The way they put it sometimes is so good. You can't really.
Yeah.
Well, you can expand on it, but basically, it's done so well.
Yes, very well put it. Yes.
This studies that help us to have what to say when we face situations like we had yesterday. Because from my own thoughts and my own feelings, I may be lost on how to react. Any of us, like one of our friends was like, looked at me like, what do we say? What do we do? And then I thought, okay, like I'm studying this, so there's this, and then you can let the person.
I think the first thing that we need to do, Flo Denise, when that happens, because I can see how difficult it may be for some people even to do that first move. So when they open up, the first thing that we could do is to acknowledge what they are saying. It's so good that you are opening up your experience where you are at the moment, so that we start and embrace the person where they are. So in case they have any idea, oh my God, do they think that I'm crazy or whatever, we immediately calm that down through the way that we interact. It's so good that you are talking about, let's think together. So you put yourself with the other person. Let's think together. What is the most challenging part in your experience here? Why are you considering that? Because then we gradually, smoothly, in a loving way, go to the core. What is the challenging process? And then from that point onwards, when we know, we stimulate the potentials from the self level onwards in the individual. If they understand about the spirituality or not, we all can do that. Because we all can use the universal language. Let's learn from it. What would be the different ways that you could face this experience? Let's think together. So we always stimulate already towards the solution, the way out, to help in a gentle way. The person is almost like to discrystallize the rigidity of that unique way out in the situation. Let's think together. The person feels that is supported, and then we stimulate looking forward what is the way out in the situation where the person is.
And when the person is have not been diagnosed with depression, but they are distancing themselves from other people, and whenever they talk, they bring up, oh, I don't have interest in things, and I'm having trouble sleeping, so I've asked the doctors for some pills, and I'm constantly using them, and now sometimes I can't work because my head is not in place, and I come home, and then I just take a pill and went to sleep, and they avoid having contact or interactions. Whatever you try to ask for, do something or whatever, they just close.
We help them. I can hear what you're saying, that you're finding difficult to sleep or finding difficult to go out. Yet let's consider what would be the benefit if you would choose, let's say, to go to the supermarket, make your shoppings, or to go to your church, or to go to your community center, or whatever, depending on the person. We need to take it from a personal level. Always help to show what would be the benefits. Yeah. Because usually the person knows, and if not, we help. And then they say, well, I can see that, but I cannot do it. Let's consider. I will have to think together. We are not feeding. When the person comes with their limitations, we acknowledge that, but we help to strengthen a way out, show a way out. So we stimulate the person. What are the resources available exactly now in this situation that you already can activate? You just didn't know how to do that. So when we talk in a loving way, they can become quite receptive quite often. So we need to be careful the words that we use. Because people, as you said, they are already abandoned themselves. They may not be diagnosed as depressed, but we can see already the signals there. So we may also, instead of saying you are responsible, you have responsibility to do that, we won't use that word there and then. We need to use a different word. I'm pretty sure that you can do it because you are free within, despite of your head in a mess, but still there is a light inside you, and we connect with that and help you to get out. So we use different words that help to console and bring hope to the person in that. Because that is the way that we connected quite often with the benefactors, and the benefactors of that individual, they use us to bring some light in that mind and move forward.
Okay, so it gave me the idea that the person who brings in some interest is good to reinforce then that interest.
Yes,
Whatever
and
the idea
as we are talking with the person, we pay attention. What are the resources? Where is this person's life? Are they engaged in a spiritual pathway, or have they been and they don't go anymore? Are they paying their bills, or what are they finding challenging? And in that way, we start to develop the process. It's always unique on an individual level. Yeah. So carry on here now the note. Would you like to read that part for us, please?
Religion, morality, and philosophy condemn suicide as being contrary to the law of nature. All tell us, in principle, that we have no right to intentionally shorten our own life. But why do we not have that right? Why are we not free to put an end to our own sufferings? It is up to the Spiritist doctrine to address these questions and to show through the actual examples of those who have succumbed to it, and that suicide is not only a wrong that violates moral law, consideration of a little importance to some individuals, but a reckless act that will bring no benefit in fact. The result will be quite the contrary. It is not according to some theory that Spiritism teaches us this. Spiritism has set actual examples right in front of us.
Okay, would you like to comment? What came to us when we heard what has been read? This last part of the note from question 957. How did we hear it? What were we getting from it? It's interesting that here the last paragraph of the note says religion, morality, and philosophy condemn suicide as being contrary to the law of nature. How is that coming to
I
mind?
think they mean the religion said us you mustn't commit suicide, you mustn't kill, but they don't speak about the consequences.
Mm-hmm.
So Spiritism does tell you the example.
Okay. What else?
Because I believe the Spiritism enlightens us much more of the consequences. It brings more enlightenment, more explanation, more information that one can use to really, deviate that thought.
Mm-hmm.
And bringing this knowledge to someone, it may be they escape from all of that cycle. Because the person, once starting going into this pattern, they close themselves in that cycle. And if you come in and you bring this, and they are open for it, they may just pull themselves out and not go back into it later. Because they will always be bringing this into their mind, and that will give them strength to, wait one more day.
So would we be right in saying then the studies of Spiritism in relation to the subject dissatisfaction with life and suicide brings stimulations towards us for us to resist those tendencies and invest in ourselves in overcoming them? Is that what Spiritism helps us? For sure. Because when we go through the different angles that we analyze those subjects, all within the natural laws of life, the law of cause and effect, or potentials that we bring within, the reason why we are here as immortal beings, which is to learn and to overcome our weak points, which we all bring. And all of those explanations is helping us actually to empower ourselves from within, so that we break free from these negative and limited tendencies that we may still bring with us. Yeah. Because as children of God, as we all are, immortal beings essentially with love and light, those aspects of thinking to consider suicide doesn't make sense anymore when we learn that gradually.
Yes. I remember now Hosanna Pingley with his affirmation, choose to stay one more day, choose to stay today, at least today, Because once we look at the suicide thoughts and patterns, it does have a relation with other addictions. That persons may have those impulsive uh, things that they can't control that impulsiveness. But once you bring little bit of this knowledge into oneself, and you can at least get through that day, the other day things may be easier, maybe less thoughts and less to fight off. You will be filling yourself with hope, with that okay, maybe there is something else, and maybe this will just pass. I just wait a bit more, and it's consoling.
Yes, and in that way of reflecting, we also are opening the channels towards the benefactors that are inspiring us constantly. Because in those moments that someone may be considering having suicide thoughts, there is a lot of spiritual support from the higher beings helping us to persist and stay. There is a lot of support there. But when you say we have habits or tendencies to give up, so when we reflect on a deeper level on a suicide, those are some aspects, patterns that we bring within to giving up when we face, let's say, the next step of our evolution. Is that making sense?
Yeah, I think it's I've been reading a book the other day that the man was in a cave looking for gold, and he was like 1 centimeter, 1 millimeter of the gold, and he gave up. And someone else came and found all of that after he worked years in that. And I believe it's like this for us. When we're facing our next step, things may come in harder, it may seem harder than ever before. And one may be so empty that they may consider, this is the only way out. And that's why I say it's important that we pay attention to ourselves, to the ones around us, because we can recognize, and one word may make a huge difference, and that person may make a leap, because we will go through these things, but some of us are in a deeper work, I think, at these moments than others. And it is important if we give support.
Yes, and yet even those who may be beyond us on the back and those who are in front, but we are all learning. Those who know more, we have the duty to talk about, to open up, to explain, and also flourish these new ideas of hope and consolation, that we strengthen those who are behind us and helping each other. We are all connected, bounded by the divine laws as brothers and sisters in humanity. But we all have always different ways how we can face experiences. That is fundamental when we are closing the chapter, Hopes and Consolations, in relation to the subtitle, Dissatisfaction with Life and Suicide. If we are dissatisfied in life, it's very important that we discuss that with someone who knows more than we do. If we are able to have some psychological help, let's explore that, because that will leads us back to the core of our issues, the lack of connection with self on the deeper level, the lack of connection with our spiritual, sacred essence that we bring within. And then when we learn to do that through self-love, self-respect, understanding life and ourselves in a different way, we strengthen ourselves, we create a courage from within, which is the acceptance of reality. I cannot change the external reality, but we can always change the internal reality, which is the way that we think and feel. And in that way, in that flexible way, we will find out there are different ways that we can face the experiences. And for sure, there is always a positive one. We may not see it when we are in a black hole. Is that making sense? It seems there is no light, but there's always light there, even when we use temporary or black lenses.
Be patient to work
Be
out
patient,
that
precisely.
I believe for suiciders, for us that considers this so-called, one thing that makes stands out in between is the lack of obedience, as we've been studying before. I'm not happy with this, and I want it to be my way, and I don't want to follow through with what I asked, and to strengthen myself in those things. So once I look in me and I give me the opportunity, it may feel less heavy.
Yes, because as we said previously, as more we study Spiritism, we will understand in its triple aspects, science, philosophy, and religion. It is a pretty much psychological theory given to humanity for us to understand ourselves as immortal beings from a scientific level, because Spiritism is a science, as we study through the medium's book, through the fundamental books in Spiritism, and we are referring to ourselves as potentials who are growing, who are developing, and therefore we are also, on a psychological perspective, constantly learning that the major difficulties that we are facing, all of us, they are within us, and they have a name. Guess what? Pride and selfishness. Yes? So once we learn all of these, and then we learn, oh my God, I developed that because I haven't been created by God in a prideful, selfish way. I did that. So what is the solution? Because all the problems have solutions. Spiritism also brings a solution for us, which is learn humbleness and charity. So as long as we learn to be humble, and humbleness does not mean that we become weak, because through our brutality, we are pride, we thought that being strong is to be rude. No, humbleness is the inner power, the love that comes from God. There is where we will strengthen ourselves and be able to face any kind of situation as as we are. Because the situations, they usually are neutral. The importance that we give to them is where we are emotional. And we can change our emotional response in changing our view in relation to the experience. Yeah?
So simple. We should not complicate.
Well, the benefactors always say it's so simple to live on earth. I don't know why people are complicating, yes? But people are us. We get depressed, we are suffering from anxiety, we consider whatever. But here we are reflecting. Hopes and consolation, as more as we study ourselves as immortal beings within the natural laws in life, which are based on the love that moves forward everyone and everything towards the pathway of progress. As more as we comprehend that, as more as we surround ourselves towards those guidance, less we suffer. Because a lot of suffering comes from the resistance of our pride and selfishness, which is the ego. Once we free ourselves from that, we still have challenging, but we diminish the reaction in relation to it. We just go through and allow that the superior force guides us through, because the superior force, which comes from God, always is willing for us to move forward, because forward means better than now. Once we go through, we come out stronger, feeling happier, because where lies happiness? Within or without? Within. Also what Spiritism teaches us. I don't need, if I lost my job, for instance, I just need to learn to accommodate myself in a new reality. Because happiness is within. When I submit myself to the guidance of the will of God. If someone left me, if I was in a relationship, I don't need to despair myself, neither to consider suicide. Because I'm a loving being in essence. If the other doesn't like me and love me anymore, I still loved by God. So we always find ways to look forward. If my child died, within Spiritism we learn no one dies, everyone is alive. And sooner or later we will meet each other again. So, submitting ourselves towards the guidance of the divine, the law in the universe, which moves everything and everyone, that helps us a lot, brings console and strengthens us as we go through the experiences. But we are not experiences, and no experiences is eternal. They are transitive. Okay? In that way, we are coming to the end of this part, dissatisfaction with life and suicide today. And now we move forward, still within the chapter, hopes and consolations, and we are starting now the chapter, future joys and sorrows, not to miss the future life. What do we understand about the subtitle? What comes to our minds when we say that? Future joys and sorrows. What comes to our minds?
To me comes the rejoice we may have once we go through our choices and we choose to do good, to evolve, to stay, to obey, to develop our virtues and where we are, from how we feel and how we able to, not asking for more than me. And the sorrows, it brings to me that, if we give up, then we may go through sorrows.
Yes, because future joys and sorrows, future is helping us to understand our lives beyond the physicality. It's not talking, the future could also be the next moment, the next day, the next month, the next existence, but it's talking afterwards, after you leave Earth. Oh, it's so challenging on Earth. But if you look at it from a more constructive view, well, yes, it's challenging in terms of our learnings, but everything is right in the moment where we find ourselves. So as long as we choose to follow the flow of progress, we will feel joyful afterwards. If we resist the flow of progress, we will feel sorrow, we will lament afterwards. And then the subtitle is Nothingness, the Future Life. What comes to our minds with the word nothingness?
For me, it came when the spirits ask, what is 70, 80, 100 years in earth on the face of eternity?
Yeah.
It's like nothing. It's such a small phase, such a small experience. And yet we're here thinking, oh, this is lasting forever. Oh, this is so hard. And we're just going through one
blink of an eye. But would that also mean that they are, I don't know, through the questions that we now carry on studying, when they say nothingness is referring to those immortal beings who come back to earth and is still in a very materialistic view, they don't believe there is life after life. They believe there's nothing after this existence. I think it's pretty much referring to this part here, yes? And yet so much so that they say nothings and then they follow the future life. Let's see what we learn with these following questions in relation to nothingness according to the Spiritism. And we carry on the question 958. Jack, would you like to read it first?
Why are human beings instinctively horrified at nothingness? Because there is no such thing as nothing.
Okay, let's explore that now. How do we understand it?
Well, we know from our studies that there is life after death in the physical body. But people who don't know, and I'm speaking when I was young, when I was an atheist, I thought once you died, that was it, finished. There's nothing afterwards. That's it, you're dead.
Okay.
Well, dead means nothing.
Okay, you thought in that way.
That is how I used to think when I was an atheist.
Okay.
But once I got involved in spiritualism and healing, and
Okay.
I've studied Spiritism as well, I've learned the opposite. That
Okay.
there definitely is something.
Mm-hmm.
So that is why some people are, I mean, the idea of death horrified me when I was an atheist. Why? Why are there going to be nothing?
The question
And that
is
why I think most people outside who haven't studied spiritualism and spiritism are terrified.
let's
They
explore.
believe there is nothing.
Okay. Why are human beings instinctively horrified of nothingness?
Because the reality of the spirit within knows there's nothing.
Now we are coming to the cause, yes,
Yeah, but
because
not
the
everyone thinks that
word
way.
is instinctively,
Yeah.
isn't it?
That's
And what do we understand about instinctively?
I believe even if we don't have the spiritist knowledge, or we don't have a religion, that we have within us, like Jack said, we bring it, the knowledge of the spirit as eternal. So we know there is something, even if we don't recognize it mentally or not cognitively. We know within ourselves. So when we think, I'm going to die, there's nothing, then you get like, oh, something tells you that is
So what is that something?
It is God in us.
Where are God's laws written?
Now,
In our conscience. That is important. It's not in the conscience of the Spiritists, it's in the conscience of every spirit. If they are Spiritists, if they are Catholic, if they are Protestant, if they are Muslims, if they are atheists, they still bring that within. Because God put those laws there. So even if you don't believe in anything, but instinctively is the conservation The instinct of conservation that comes up brings that knowledge up us. So we all know that. We may not admit it or know it on the cognitive level, but as a spirit, we bring that reality with it. Okay? Then now the following question, 959. Claudia needs to read it for us, please.
Where does our instinctive sentiment of a future life come from?
Let's explore the question first. We may not read the answer, of course not. What does our instinctive sentiment of future life come from? I just said it, isn't it? I didn't know that that was the question.
That's the knowledge we think that we just talk about.
Yes, and what would be the reason that Allan Kardec brought that question? Because it's important. I always think about what was going on in Allan Kardec's head when he brought this question up. Because it was Allan Kardec who raised these questions to the superior spirits, yeah? What was in his mind?
I believe it's to clarify exactly, all our questionings that we have within oneself.
Okay.
So he gone small steps, like baby steps, to increase the importance and the knowledge and the understanding. Like we just spoke about having the instinct of there is nothing, there is something.
So,
But then now he's asking, where there's instinctive sentiment of a future life? So we know there is nothing, and we know there is a future life instinctively, but we may not bring enough to our consciousness.
so would it be right that probably because he's asking where is that coming from? Would he be considering challenging us, humanity, with the different questions to think, to reason beyond the physicality? Because other questions are intending that, to look beyond the physical level, beyond the corporeal reality, beyond the material life. Where is coming from? From the body? Where is that coming from? And then the spirits say, we have already told you, prior to its incarnation, the spirit knows all these things, and the soul retains a vague memory of what is known and of what is so in its spirit state. So is that making sense? What comes from that? So again, if Allan Kardec was thinking, which I think it was, is helping us, imagine 160 years ago, we evolved quite a lot, but still we were quite, let's say, restricted in relation to the real life. So he was helping the spirits to bring the knowledge in relation to the real life to humanity. And here where it's coming from? From the immortal being, who pre-exists the physical body, who knows already, have learned about it, and since the creation brings the knowledge of the natural laws, and has been reviewing that. And so on the deep memory, the information is there. Yeah? And now if you move on to the next one, which is the question, the note on question 959, which says, in all ages, people have occupied themselves with the future beyond the grave. This is very natural. Whatever importance they may give to the present life, they cannot help but consider how brief, and especially how precarious it is, since it can be cut short at any moment. Hence, they can never be sure of tomorrow. What becomes of them after the fatal instant? This is a serious question, for it does not deal with a few years, but with eternity. What comes to our minds here? About the note regarding question 999, which is talking about nothingness, the future life.
I believe, as it is for children, for the younger, for the adults, for the elderly, we all have our way of questioning, of imagining how things are, of bringing to our conscience what we remember, or what we have within us from our previous experiences, or for what we may hope to face once we go through with our phases. Mm-hmm. So I think each one of us, we can dig inside. We may go through this thought of reminding ourselves and bringing out the knowledge we have of what we've been through and what we're expecting.
Mm-hmm. Okay. What else? How help but consider how brief and especially how precarious it is, since it can be cut short at any moment. That is important for us to think about, because sometimes, especially when we are younger, somehow when the age develops, we think a bit different. But when we are at the beginning of the phase in a new body, we think we live forever, we think we are all powerful, we think that nothing happens to us. But here is the instruction of the enlightened being telling us, despite of all of that, that we go through the different phases, but according to our reincarnation process, we may free ourselves from the body in any moment. We don't know that. So it is important that we prepare ourselves. Something may happen to us. We may ask to go through certain experiences. Not that we need to live in despair and anguish, but is to understand life from an immortal view in a realistic way, what it means to be on earth, what it means to be in a new body again, and why these different experiences occur, which is not a punishment, it is just a blessing. All the experiences, when they flow according to the natural development of our experiences, is a blessing always for us. If you feel yourselves in a younger age, in the middle, or later on, doesn't matter. It is a blessing if you follow that natural drive of life, natural drive of evolution, natural drive of progress.
I believe, I had to learn a lot of this, because now I remember some things I've been through life. As a child, I was trying anything, going up the trees and jumping on rivers without knowing how to swim, and making my mother go, crazy, looking after me and not letting me out of her sight. And now when I have my son, I experience him watching movies and seeing heroes flying, and he went to the garden and thought, I can fly from here to the tree. And I thought, no, you can fall and break your neck or something. And in that moment, I had no other explanation for him when he looked at me and said, and so, it's okay, And I said, no, you're not going to see that anymore. And then I thought, what I'm saying for this moment.
Yeah. So in that way, within hopes and consolations, there was our transitory experiences from a perspective of immortality. We are coming to the end of our studies today, with our hearts full with gratitude for these unique and special moments in our existences, that we are gathering as brothers and sisters in humanity, studying, reflecting, learning, changing our concepts, our values, actualizing them, and in that way feeling filled with hope and console. Because the major consolation in our existence is to learn who we truly are, the potentials that we bring within in overcoming any challenging experiences, the potential that we bring within to learn in all the experiences. As immortal beings, who essentially are beings of love, of light and peace. May God, who is love, through his beings of light, enlighten us all, bless us all, so that we may feel stronger, strengthen us from our hearts and minds to carry on studying, learning, reflecting, and becoming better beings in every day, as we already are essentially beings of goodness. May we choose in our daily existence to exercise it, to practice goodness in our minds, our hearts, and our behaviors. And in that way, connecting with the souls, with the spirits of goodness. And together, moving forward, believing, trusting in ourselves, that life is about change, and change for better for all of us, everywhere, all the time. So be it. Much peace.